Gamarjoba Sakartvelo. Sakartvelo.
We are here. Gamarjoba.
Hello.
Gamarjoba.
Gamarjoba.
Okay. Waiting a sign for my colleagues.
Gamarjoba.
Mogę salma bit.
Gamarjoba, Gamarjoba.
Gamarjoba Sakartvelo. Hello, Georgia.
Gamarjoba.
I prefer some words in Georgian. Probably the accent will be not the best one, but I will improve. Sakartvelom shvenierik vekana mshromeli dabrdzeni kalkit. I promise improving this. My name is Sergiu Costache. I'm the general manager of Xprim. And we organized last year the first edition of Georgian International Insurance Conference. Now we are at the second one. And I want to thank to our sponsors, and I think I spoke with almost all the insurance companies in Georgia. And I want to say many thanks. It means in Georgian, I could say Madloba, Didi Madloba, to Euroins and Green Insurance, who are main partners, to Global Benefits, IRAO, my insurance broker, and Recrex Crawford, ARDI, eMediL Health Insurance, and Alpha Insurance companies for the financial support they give us for the event. I am here today with my colleague Daniela Ghețu. She's the brain of this conference. She put the topics. She built the topics. She put the special guest here together with us. She discussed with almost everybody who was relevant. Daniela Ghețu, she is the editorial director of our publications, of Xprim Publications. And she's actually like the producer of this conference. I let her introduce the program of this event. Madloba, Daniela.
I think I was muted, but hello everyone. My skills in Georgian are less performant than of my colleague, so I will just go on in English. Happy to meet you again. I would be very much loved to be in Tbilisi now, but unfortunately these times didn't allow us to be there. And even if there is only in a virtual manner, we are happy to have you here with our TV studio and see you again and hopefully keep in touch for a longer period. It goes without saying that we believe in communication, in sharing knowledge and in relevant experience. This is why we have gathered today a team of excellent speakers. They will share with you their knowledge and their relevant experiences. And we will have a focus on three main topics. First, we will see how the global and the Georgian market have fared during the difficult times this year. Then we will speak a little about health insurance and the challenges that this particular segment of business is facing during this health crisis. And we will end with a section dedicated to digitalization, a trend that is fast developing under the pressure raised by the current crisis. That being said, I think better is to really start going to our topics.
It's my role again to say a few words about, and I want to emphasize the role of the Insurance State Supervisory Service of Georgia, and especially of Mr. ONOPRISHVILI. I think we established a good relation with him, and for me, it's always a pleasure of discussing with him. He's very open and an open-minded person, and I spoke all the time with him, and he advised us regarding the conference, the topics, the companies, the environment in Georgian market. I could say Didi Madloba, David ONOPRISHVILI. I start improving my Georgian, starting with the names, and I spoke with the leaders of the companies. And for me, in this moment, Georgian, it sounds very familiar. Georgadze, Lomadze, Mikaberidze, Decanosidze, Kvishia, Japaridze, Lomauri, Edilashvili, Lebanidze, Akrakadze, Huseinov, Godzadze, Amaglobeli, Morkiladze, Diasamize, Kumishvili, Sulamanidze, Shvanadze, Magalashvili, Baratashvili, and many others. I get now back to thanks to our sponsors, and to give the microphone to David, I will, if you are opening the microphone, it's okay. And he's the head of Georgian Insurance State Supervision Service. This is for people who are not from Georgia. David, the welcome address is yours.
Thank you. Sergio, it's really I appreciate you and extreme your team, Daniela and others that we managed together. And it was a lot of your contribution in that we have today Georgian International Conference, despite we are in Zoom and virtually such conference, and I hope it's a first and the last time like this we have a conference in Georgia and everywhere. And it's a really pleasure to host you, but sorry, we cannot really show Georgian hospitality and some other Georgian traditions during this day. And but we are ready to really discuss and show and discuss the issues related to Georgian insurance market, world market. And I appreciate you that you invited very prominent and professional people here. Especially, I would like to mention Professor Karel van HULLE. My pleasure, Mr. HULLE, that you are here, and we really want to hear from you a lot of interesting things, what's going on in Europe, and the reaction of businesses or different things related to this pandemic time. I really appreciate that Mr. Francisco CARRASCO, whom I know well now because he represents Spanish authority, our friends. We have a twinning now with Spanish authority, and we are working on Solvency II, which is a founder and kind of godfather, not kind, I mean, the godfather is a Professor Karel van HULLE, and other speakers, of course, very good speakers. Our friend, good friend Klime Popovsky, he will be in third part, and Desislav Danov, I don't know him personally, but it's good that he participates. Miriam BLAZQUEZ, and Georgian, and also Cornelia PARASCHIV, and Georgian, of course, participants. I'm welcoming Dimitri KUMSISHVILI, who recently joined the insurance business, and it's really good that he will be on the panel today to hear from him about his company and the future of, by his view, what is the future of the insurance. And also, really interesting panel will be, I think, on health, where is along with foreign speakers will be Georgian speakers, Aleksandre KOBAKHIDZE and Michael JAPARIDZE. I hope I don't miss. Of course, we have a keynote speech from Jason Nick Shing from Corporate Entrepreneurship Core Strategy Turkey. So I think it's very nice, and we are ready really to have a nice conference, and hope that next year we will host you in a real environment here in Georgia. Thank you.
We would like nothing better than being there next year. But until then, let's see what we have for today. I would say that if we have imagined this conference as a trip exploring the latest trends in the industry, how much they have shaped the industry, considering the challenges of this unprecedented period and the type of crisis we are now facing. At this moment, I think I have to introduce you the actual guide in this voyage, and he is the chair of the conference, Professor Karel van HULLE. Well, Karel is a well-known personality of the insurance industry, not only in Europe, but also at global level. But let's just see just a couple of words about his career for those of you who maybe don't know them. Karel lectures at the Economic and Business Faculty in the KU Leuven in Belgium, and also at the Economics Faculty at the Goethe University in Frankfurt. He was a member and even the chairman of the Insurance and Reinsurance Stakeholder Group of EIOPA, and he is still involved in several other international bodies in the financial field. For almost 30 years, he served in several capacities within the European Commission, but the 9 years that he headed the insurance and pensions at the European Commission until March 1st, 2013, were those who brought him an honorary title, although not an official one, being recognized as the father of the Solvency II regime. A change that has shaped practically the current state of the insurance industry. And maybe through this perspective and his global knowledge, Karel will navigate us today to the conference topics, sharing his personal experience and running the panel of discussions. Karel, at this point, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Daniela, and Gamarjoba. I would have wished to be in Georgia today, but unfortunately, I can only be in spirit with you and not physically. I'm very pleased to moderate this conference today, and let me just try to start with some comments about the COVID-19 as we have experienced it in the European Union. Obviously, the pandemic, which is spread now across the globe, is a good example for an unexpected risk. We can model in insurance a lot of things, but we should always keep in mind that the future is uncertain. And this COVID-19 is an unexpected risk nobody at the beginning of this year would have imagined that we would now all be 10% poorer, and then more than 1 million people will have died as a result of this pandemic. And if you look at how customers, because let's not forget in insurance, it's all about the customers, and how customers experience this COVID-19. Well, many customers discovered a new protection gap. Many customers found out that they were not protected. And I think about business interruption, I think about travel and other situations. Also, very remarkably, we saw that the insurance industry showed sometimes its irrelevance and lack of empathy by taking a wait-and-see attitude, or by refusing coverage in cases where maybe the customers should have received cover. Only in a few cases, insurers were prepared to compensate policyholders or to lower premiums in areas such as motor insurance, where obviously the insurers were making windfall profits as nobody was driving their motor cars. Regulators had to intervene to remind the insurance industry about the need to treat their customers fairly. Now, if you look at the insurance industry itself, what was the impact? It's fair to say that the direct insurance losses from COVID-19 were fairly limited, or are fairly limited. If you look at the solvency ratios in the European Economic Area, we see that there is that the solvency ratio still stands very strong. It is still at 225%, as opposed to what it normally should be, 100%. So you can see that capitalization of the industry is strong, and the recent data from EIOPA show that this continues also during the second quarter. There were indirect losses, of course, from lockdowns, and those were considerable. And they are maybe likely to be underestimated because we still don't know what the possible recession resulting from COVID-19 might produce in terms of negative profitability. Very importantly, and that's why it's on the agenda today, is the impact on digitalization. Insurers suddenly became virtual. They suddenly showed that, as was already the case in the banking sector, that they could operate in a virtual environment. And I believe that that is one of the things that will remain after COVID-19, that a lot of the contacts, a lot of the work in insurance will also be carried out in a virtual manner. The COVID-19 crisis showed for the industry the importance of operational resilience, the possibility for an insurer to operate in an environment where physical contact is made difficult. And that, of course, creates new challenges, such as cyber risk protection, which has now moved up to one of the top risks in our risk category. Finally, the prolonged low interest rate environment is likely going to be longer than expected, because our governments in most countries have had to borrow money in order to support the industry, to support people, to support hospitals. And all that, of course, means that more money has been pumped in the economies, and that money can only be repaid if the interest rates are kept low. Now, you look at the impact on insurance supervisors. Very interesting compared to the banking crisis in 2008 is that supervisors did not panic. The action by supervisors was quite rational. They started by imposing a limit on profit distribution. And this is an issue of some concern with large insurance groups in Europe who believed that there was no need for the supervisors to do that, but it shows that insurance supervisors want to be prudent and want to make sure that the money stayed within the companies. Supervisors reminded the insurers to treat their customers fairly, and they allowed delays in supervisory reporting. Interesting enough, we saw also for the first time that insurance supervisors manage very well to meet with the supervised entities in a virtual manner. We even saw virtual inspections, something that would never have been considered realistic last year. And basically, there was also a very important intervention in many countries in the world, not only in Europe, of supervisors that reminded regulators that resolving the problems from the pandemic could not mean that insurers would be required to retroactively cover risks which had been specifically excluded from insurance contracts. And that, I think, ladies and gentlemen, is an important reminder that insurance is based on a contract and that we need to stick to the terms of the contract. A lesson we learn from the crisis is that these contracts may have to be drafted even clearer than they were in the past so that the customers know what is covered and what is not covered. So with that, respecting the time limits that I have imposed on everybody during this conference, I would like to conclude and pass on the floor to our next speaker, who is my good friend, Francisco Carrasco. I say a good friend because I know him well, and his brother actually worked with me at the European Commission when we were developing Solvency II. So Francisco is Deputy Director General for Insurance and Regulation in the Spanish Directorate General for Insurance and Pension Funds. He's responsible for regulation and insurance policy and international relations, the claims department, and the day-to-day functioning of the Directorate General through the Secretariat General Department. Francisco has more than 17 years of experience as an insurance supervisor, not only in Spain, but also as a member of different committees and working groups in a number of national and international institutions connected to financial supervision and regulation, such as the European Commission, EIOPA, where I think I met Francisco first, on the IAS, of course, and on ASAL, which is the grouping of insurance supervisors from Latin America. Well, Francisco will give us a presentation of about 15 minutes on the impact of the COVID crisis in the insurance sector. So Francisco, please, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Karel. Thank you very much, the sponsors and everyone for the invitation to participate in the opening of this event. A very special and very warm greeting to David and all my Georgian colleagues. It's a pity we cannot meet physically. For sure, we will have more opportunities in the future. It is my pleasure to participate in this event with colleagues and let me say friends like yourself, Karel, also Klime Popovsky, and obviously Miriam BLAZQUEZ. No doubt, COVID-19 is the most interesting topic that we can address today. It is every day and everywhere on the newspapers, TV, radio, internet. When I look back what I was doing 1 year ago, it is very clear that I was not precisely expecting something like this, by no means. Giving a speech from my living room in a conference in Georgia with dozens of attendees by the internet. That was not at all an expectation for me. Those of us who work in the insurance field are more used than others to see things like this, things that in principle are difficult to happen, but they finally become a reality. Being this our case, something like this cannot be expected by anyone. Sometimes I still have to pinch myself to believe that this is happening. In these cases, I remember the sentence of a well-known man, Keynes. He said that then it inevitably rarely happens. It is the unexpected that often happens. And that is probably what is in the heart not only of COVID-19, but also in the heart of the insurance business from the very beginning. So in the end, here we are virtually. So I am going to bring together a brief analysis of the consequences of the crisis for the sector. There is plenty of issues to talk about, but I will limit myself to a short outline. To get to the point, and if we start from the very beginning, it forces us to take a journey in time of only a few months, but it almost seems like years. I believe that the first element to be highlighted, which today is something we take for granted, is that the insurance undertakings continue to operate reasonably normal almost the day after the confinements were declared. They continue to cover risks and provide service to their customers. In this sense, there have been no huge problems, at least in Spain and in general in the European Union. That's I think fair to be recognized. They continue to cover risk and provide service to their customers. In this sense, well, that is my very first and immediately impression. They put in place safeguards, obviously, for their staff and customers and the means necessary to continue working. Teleworking has been a reality in record time. The appropriate regulatory steps were also taken in different countries to ensure that insurance was considered an essential activity, and for instance, that the service providers could operate, repairers, and the rest of the people involved in the insurance services could carry out their work. This has also been a challenge for us as supervisors. I believe we successfully dealt with this extreme operational stress test. In a very short time, we managed to get almost 100% of our staff working remotely. This is very important because, as you can imagine, in a crisis situation, it is crucial, more important than ever, to be able to continue supervising. In this sense, we initiated contact rounds with most of the companies in the sector. Every week at the beginning of the crisis and during the first months, we had several telephone conversations with each company. Different questionnaires were prepared to be sent on a wide range of subjects, including not only solvency-related issues, but also operational and customer service aspects. At the same time, I believe that it was very important to give some flexibility so that insurers could focus on solving the main problems and giving the best service to policy holders on those especially stressed times. In this sense, it was regulated to allow certain delays in the regular reporting to us, as Karen said, while at the same time, as I said, data was requested in a less formal fashion several times a week. In terms of impact on the sector, it is still not very clear. This is because, in general, the financial performance of the insurance industry, at least in the case of Spain, I believe worldwide, has a strong correlation with the evolution of the economic situation, and there is still too much uncertainty in this respect. For example, it is not clear for the time being when we will have a vaccine and a large part of the population will be immunized. A situation of restriction of economic growth, such as the one derived from the pandemic, will probably affect the sales of contracts in a similar way. If, in addition, there are confinement measures, the impact will become more severe, because the sale of many policies is largely based on face-to-face relationship between the distributor and the client. The impact, however, varies across different lines of business. For example, less car traffic has led to fewer accidents. Some countries have forced the return of part of the premiums, but this has not been a general trend. On the other hand, some entities have freely considered transferring part of the benefit obtained to the policyholder by way of premium refunds or renewal discounts. The health insurance, which in principle could be more impacted, has not been as affected as initially expected, at least in Spain, I believe. In our country, in this line of business, and also in other lines of business, there is a pandemic exclusion in the contracts. Obviously, for reasons of insurance technique, such as risk diversification, a pandemic affects everyone at the same time, and in this case, it is very difficult to insure. We've been monitoring this kind of exclusions, and despite they do exist, in general, the insurance undertakings have treated their customers loyally, and at least in Spain, they did not apply them. Furthermore, due to greater risk awareness, some customers have chosen to buy policies of greater value, resulting at the end of the day in an unexpected, in principle, positive impact, depending on every company. The business continuity and credit insurance line of business could be among the most affected ones. The credit insurance market could be harder in the near future, even with restrictions to some risk coverage or economic sectors. This situation could pose serious consequences for commercial activity. Small and medium-sized enterprises may be less willing to sell if they do not have insurance, leading to an even greater economic slowdown, which can be fatal for a society. For this reason, several EU governments have implemented public support measures for credit insurance, and in Spain, we are actively working on this as well. Representatives from the industry invited to this conference, I'm sure we'll be discussing about some topics I have just mentioned. The situation of the insurance distributors must also be taken into account. Some small or medium-sized distributors with substantial fixed cost for staff or rents suffered some liquidity tensions in a context of low sales. In many cases, insurance undertakings have given them facilities so that they can handle the situation. With regard to the solvency of the sector in Spain, and as Karel pointed out, in general in the EU, reductions in solvency ratios have been very, very limited on average. The solvency position is, as Karel said, still very, very strong. However, there is significant dispersion in the data. In our case, the companies are conservatives in their investments. They have a very small position in equity, which was immediately affected when confinements began. For this reason, the impact was low. At the same time, falling interest rates increase the value of bonds in the portfolio, which can help offset the fall in share prices. In addition to this effect, a key factor in the calculation of the SCR is the discount curve for technical provisions. The volatility in the risk-free curve published by EIOPA on a weekly basis, as you know, and the volatility adjustment have had an impact on insurance solvency position. In this context, the DGSFP published a note on the distribution of dividends by insurance undertakings based on the two EIOPA recommendations. Put it simply, these recommendations stated that in view of the exceptional situation produced by the pandemic, the preservation of capital should prevail over the distribution of dividends or any other remuneration to shareholders. These recommendations have been generally accepted, although not in every case, and have generally served at least to open a reflection on these concrete situations. Regarding liquidity in the sector, this is a risk mainly considered in Pillar 2 and Pillar 3 of Solvency II. A more specific follow-up has been developed by supervisors, especially during the initial phase of this crisis. The conclusion is that the crisis is not one of liquidity. In general, there are no problems with this within the sector. Although that conclusion is fully in line with our initial impression, it was useful, to be honest, to carry out an analysis in this area in order to contrast this preliminary thought in a more reliable and not only in a simply intuitive manner. As regards aspects of insurance undertakings governance, some companies are changing their scenarios in their own risk and solvency assessment report, what we call the ORSA report, as there are many effects that play in opposite directions that require a more detailed analysis. For instance, significant falls in claims on motor vehicle, as I said, with a decrease in underwriting, for instance. In addition, we identified a need to ask for preparation of business continuity plans, which in our supervisor side constitutes a very useful thinking for everyone. In a teleworking context, such as the present one, there are risks which have reached a much greater dimension, such as cyber risk. Karel also has elaborated on this. Teleworking can lead to security breaches, and also the increased flow of information on the internet can exacerbate this situation. Probably there is a need to approach this area in a more methodical way. With regard to market conduct, we perform an intense monitoring during these hard moments. The adequate fulfillment of contracts and the preservation of the contractual balance have been checked. Avoiding disruptions in service has been also an essential element for everyone, and particularly for us as supervisors, especially in certain line of business. Contractual exclusions due to pandemics have not been applied in Spain in general, as I said. The sector, for its part, has worked to strengthen its reputation through multiple initiatives, such as the creation of free insurance for health workers, discounts on facilities for paying policies in favor of policyholders, and also a number of solidarity actions. As supervisor, these are the main aspects I would like to highlight of this crisis. In view of this, countries have made a great regulatory effort, sometimes to remove rigidities in operations or existing requirements. At the European Union level, we have taken advantage of the fact that the EIOPA was working on the Solvency II review. And in this situation, we decided to delay our advice in the EIOPA to the European Commission so that it can also take into account as far as possible the lessons to be learned from the situation caused by COVID-19. The general feeling, however, and this is a very initial impression, is that the current situation does not call for urgent additional regulatory action. There are many and diverse lessons that we, supervisors, regulators, companies, distributors, and customers can study from this crisis. I will highlight just a few. The insurance sector have coped with the situation well in terms of solvency and operations. The analysis carried out indicate that the industry is not exposed to liquidity problems. In our opinions, for the Spanish case, this is not a liquidity crisis. I think this is also valid for the industry worldwide. In the study of a pandemic, the impact on people's health is, of course, very important. It is a supreme good, in fact. Although in supervisory terms, the measures that the authorities are forced to adopt to contain the pandemic and its consequences for the sector and the economy in general are also essential for any kind of assessment. There are also exogenous factors outside the traditional solvency analysis, in my view, which in particular negative circumstances can help to stabilize a critical situation. Thus, a system such as Solvency II contemplates what we call future management actions, but the actions from the governments and central banks have been even more influential, both because of their material and immaterial impact, providing confidence to the financial sector. Rapid, powerful, and where possible, coordinated action by these authorities can give also insurance market a confidence boost. This, together with sound solvency levels, allow institutions to take decisions in a more calm and rational manner. There have been no massive sales of assets or lapses in the Spanish insurance sector, despite the fall in the equity markets, which, in addition to providing stability, has enabled companies to recover the value of those assets. One of the greatest concerns of the industry and supervisors in many countries is the context of prolonged ultra-low interest rates, which this crisis will unfortunately probably intensify and extend over time. This will be something we all have to continue working on. Difficult circumstances such as crisis mean that some managers are finally facing some realities that would otherwise be swept under the carpet. Specifically, there may be a greater appetite for improving efficiency, also through corporate operations, for instance, M&A, giving rise to more solid and competitive companies. Flexibility, as I said, also is essential for the supervisor in order to be able to apply his expert judgment. The new solvency systems must leave room for the supervisor to adapt its actions to the peculiarities of every situation. In the case of COVID crisis, this enabled us to act in two a priori opposite directions by allowing deferrals in compliance with formal reporting requirements and at the same time by promoting much more intense and up-to-date monitoring, continuous dialogue with supervised entities, and making supervisory recommendations, including treatment of the customers and payment of dividends and so. Of course, speech in crisis times cannot be considered as complete without the much needed reference to Japanese crisis representation, which is equal, as you all know, to risk plus opportunity. I have already spoken a great deal about the risks, but I am always a positive person, and I think that there are also many opportunities. Just as it is not nice for me not to be able to be in person with you at this conference in Georgia, I also have the unexpected chance to give my speech from a living room and stay with my family at home in Madrid. So everything has also a positive impact. For reasons of time, I am not going to stand today with the opportunities I detect. Let me share at least with you some ideas, many of which you will perfectly understand just by mentioning them. For instance, we can take advantage of this situation to build a more solid system and culture of supervision, not so much regulation, but more frequent contact and dialogue with the companies. At least in my country, this was necessary. This trend already began with Solvency II, but the pandemic has clearly intensified this useful supervisory approach, which is now more embedded in our supervisory culture. There is also an opportunity to promote a robust digitalization of the sector and the supervisor, which will also improve customer services. In this regard, some research indicates that the world has made a progress in terms of digitalization during these months, equivalent to 3 to 5 years. There is also an opportunity in paying more attention to customer protection from the perspective of better contract enforcement, balance, and clarity. Strengthening the reputation of the sector is something that we can work in circumstances such as this. It goes without saying that it is also in the interest of supervisors. As supervisors, we are now even more aware of new risks that may affect the industry, probably in the future, such as IT risks. Greater risk awareness also of citizens is also an opportunity for everyone, including attention to insurance and financial education. Designing products that are better adapted to the needs of the customers and that provide more value is to be explored. This situation can be a trigger to study alternatives for new insurance coverage, such as pandemics or cyber risks. Different countries are already working on this, and this issue is also being studied in the European Union. To conclude my speech, we as financial supervisors are used to identifying risks. As insurance supervisors, much more, because managing risk is the business of the insurance sector. So let us remember that black swans are there, they do exist. This is important for everyone, for supervisors, for institutions, for intermediaries, and for customers. I hope these small thoughts have been useful to you. I remain at your disposal for any questions or comments you may have. And again, thank you very much for your kind invitation and your attention. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Francisco, for this excellent overview and all the very useful suggestions which we will take home. Unfortunately, time is running and there is no time more for questions, but because I have to announce our next speaker. Our next speaker, who is the chair of the Supervisory Authority in Georgia, David ONOPRISHVILI, who has already had a very distinguished career in the private and the public sectors and in politics as a member of the parliament. He's also has been involved in the drafting of many Georgian laws. He has an extensive experience also with international institutions, with the IMF and with the World Bank, and he's heading since February 2019 the Insurance State Supervision Service of Georgia. David, I would have wished to meet you in person. This has not yet been possible. I hope it will be sometime next year, but I'm very pleased to give you the floor. I know we've run over a little bit over our time, but yes. Please take your time to make your message. Please, David.
Thank you very much, Karel. It's a pleasure today to discuss issues generally about insurance, COVID-related issues. From my side, I would like to today to discuss and overview situation with the market during this 9 months period of time, what figures we have up to today, and partially compare as well with the last year. As a proactive regulatory body, and despite being in a remote working regime already in early spring, then it was some easy times in the summer, and again now we are in a really very active communication with the insurers as well as our colleagues from other local and foreign relevant institutions. On the initial stage, our aim was to just understand the challenges related to COVID-19, both locally and globally as well. We have studied initial reports on the impact on the global economy in general and in insurance industry particularly. During this, we initiated consultations with the market, just even starting from the March, and first immediate move also was to protect the policyholders as well, which were affected immediately by the lockdown. It was really unusual situations emerged in certain cases. We in March issued official paper with the recommendation on distance services, which we never had before, strengthening infrastructures to meet distance service requirements, protect policyholders with high risk, elder persons, revise existing contracts to face the changing environment, provide these services. Do in timely manner, constantly and immediately communicate with our institution in case in any newly identified potential risks arise. Our entity and the insurance sector mutually agreed on the suggestions to extend premium payment schedules in some cases, to suspend the insurance coverage for a period of lockdown for cars, for example, as already mentioned here. At the same time, our consultations with the insurers helped them support their employees as well by avoiding massive discharges of the employees. And they're also trying to somehow to keep the employees at the beginning of that period. Now I would like to actually upload my presentation. I will share. One second. I need one more time. So I have some problems maybe with uploading. Okay. So this is the insurance market. It's uploaded, right? You can see it. So gross written premium, it's a 9 months period, over 9 months with last year. There is a 6.5% growth with premiums for 9 months. And I just separately put the September, which is also compared to September last year. It's also slightly high than it was last year. Here is a gross paid claims. In 2019, there were large property claims because the difference in net paid and gross paid, because it was a large property claims which were mostly covered by the reinsurers. Therefore, net claims were not affected significantly. And there is an 11% increase in net incurred claims this year, which indicates that the industry is active in most lines of business. Nevertheless, there is a certain decrease in numbers of health insurance claims, which is mainly related to COVID-19 spread control measures and inability, this was the most important, inability of insured persons to apply for non-urgent and planned services in healthcare institutions. Here is, you can see the technical result. Revenue also increased within these 9 months. It's like 7% increase. And the main component contributing in the increase of net profit was the market. Last year it was 12.5, but slowdown is due to significant decrease in some relative profitable line of businesses, such as we don't have MTPL. Unfortunately, it's coming. I'll mention it a little bit later, but we have a border MTPL kind of innovation from Georgian side. It was impossible to pass full legislation, and at least it was passed the third-party liability for motor vehicles who are entering into the country from the outside the border. And this was significantly decreased. It was related mainly to tourism, but cargo transit is more or less still available, and travel, of course. And the main factor, one of the main factor also effect on the net profit increase is exchange rate depreciation during 2020. It's a result of revaluation of cash and other liquid assets of insurers held in foreign currencies. Here is a line of businesses where is a major decrease. You can notice is a motor liability, also in aviation, of course, and cargo and travel as well. Because I have some limitation of time, I'm trying to be a little bit speed up my presentation. But it will be available, so you can see in the future, and you can ask any questions you are interested in this presentation. Here is a structure of insurance market by lines of the businesses in 9 months of 2020. So, and the motor casco insurance business was following property insurance business, but increasing demand for a car insurance and general practical popularity of motor insurance products. And of course, health is number one in Georgia, 41%, motor cargo property, and then the others. Others here is a life, and we don't have some specific lines. It's related to banking products so far. And this is a current picture of the business lines. Here is a medical health, and the right side, the road transport means casco. You can see it's 18, 19, and 2020, and it's slight increase in every year in health insurance, because people, insurance, you know, in former Soviet countries, it's a little bit specific new product. It was not available, but by mentality, all this in former Soviet countries, it's still people thinking they are just additional taxes to them. But people in recent years understanding the benefits of the insurance, and because we see, despite such situation, increase in health insurance, which is private health insurance, they are buying, and also in motor vehicles third party, despite we have not the law for mandatory one. Here is a gross written premium during the months, these 9 months, and here you can see the 2020 blue line is how it's lockdown started in March. Its year actually started quite well, and lockdown in March, April, May. Then summer was a little bit easy, and with tourists were, and then again from September, again it goes down because the COVID intensified in Georgia. Here is in business, separate business like a medical, it's a bit higher than last year, almost all months in Georgia. Motor casco, you see after lockdown, it's really significantly decreased, and understandable why. Also here, the property, here's property slight increase was slight increase in May, July, and then it says almost same or decrease. As well, here we have the civil liability. It's a small share in Georgia so far, and it's some increase, decrease, but comes during the shutdown of the economy and lockdown. And last, here is we can see in travel. Travel, of course, travel doesn't have a big share, definitely, but still you can see it's come to zero even to May, at 0.1, 0, and slight increase in August because economy was open and people were allowed to go to the seashores, and foreigners also a little bit moving, starting to moving. Flights started a bit slightly, and it's moved. And border TPL, which I mentioned, you can see it's almost up to 50% down compared to last year. You can see like at August, when it's an intensive tourist season, was last year 4.7 million, and this year 1.5, plus including the, actually it's a major share here in August, and the other months is in this blue line, which is cargo and not for tourist cars and small cars. So this is a general overview which I would wanted to share, how it's in Georgia working during the pandemic. And one is a positive, what I can mention, that it's not hit much to the insurers, to insurance companies. Of course, they're experiencing different problems, but compared to other businesses, of course, like hospitality, hotels, etc., of course, it's not relevant, definitely. So thank you very much for my presentation, and anytime in the future, if you have any questions, I'm available, and you are welcome. Thanks.
Thank you very much, David, for this excellent overview of the impact of COVID-19 on the Georgian market. I will retain a message which is similar to the one that Ricardo passed earlier on, is that the impact was fairly limited. So the market is still functioning, and I think that is important. Let's maybe now move to our panel discussion. And I would like to ask maybe Dimitri KUMSISHVILI, who is the president of the Board of Green Insurance in Georgia, to take the floor and to make some comments on how he sees the market developing in Georgia. So Dimitri, can you please take the floor?
Good afternoon. Do you hear my voice?
Yes.
Okay, so I would like to thank the organizers to having me here. I would like to greet the authority, Mr. David ONOPRISHVILI, as well as authority from Spain, and all participants. I would like to greet you, Dr. HULLE. Thank you very much to participate on this event. So our company is newly entered to the market, and I will not focus on our company. So mostly, despite of it, I would like to focus on the sector as well as whole, and the main aim of us should be that insurance sector should become a major player, the important factor in our economy, which will create as much public good as it can in our country. Insurance companies are one of the largest institutional investors in the international market, but not in Georgia. In order for Georgia insurance companies to become the institutional investor, it is important to develop the accumulative insurance, the pension products, as well as to implement the compulsory insurance under the European Union Association Agreement, what we have. So the Georgian insurance market increased on average by annual 6% between 2009 and 2019 and reached around 625 million in this period. But still, and right now I'd like to share with you my screen. I'd like to share with you, okay. Do you see my screen? Okay, so despite that we saw that insurance market grows quite rapidly in the last years. As I mentioned, the average annual growth was 6% during from between 2009 and 2019. By the GDP earner premium ratio, we significantly lags behind many developing countries. So you see that the Georgia stood at 1.3%. Here is Georgia, when our neighbors are quite ahead, and the average world is around of 7%. At the same time, the Georgia lags behind, and I would like to switch to the next slide, behind other developing countries by the amount of per capita earned premium too. And we see that Georgia is like 54 United States dollars, when Turkey is at the same time at 127 United States dollars. So what we can do and how we can close this gap. So Mr. David ONOPRISHVILI already showed us this graph, is how the premiums is divided between the types of insurance. So I will not concentrate on it, rather I will go to another slide. So from 2007 to 2013, the state health insurance program was developed, and the private insurance companies were involved on it. And on that case, in 2013, we had some 2 million people who were insured from the private insurance companies, from the insurance companies. Starting from 2014, and at the time I was the part of the government, we implemented the Universal Healthcare Insurance Program. And this program is honestly, I can say that very successful, but right now I think that this is the time to work with the government to re-enter to that market and to make compulsory insurance, health insurance program, maybe not to all population, but at least to the hired employees. So when the government abolished the participation of the insurance companies in 2014, the number of valid policies dropped from 2 million to 535,000. So, and right now in the first quarter of 2020, we have 616,000 valid insurance policies. So I think that we have a huge room there to increase the numbers of the insured people. I also would like to mention what's happened on the land vehicle insurance market. So only 7% of the registered vehicles in Georgia are insured right now, and this is 95,000 valid policies. So, and we have 1.4 million vehicles registered in Georgia. So as you see, there is a huge room which huge gap which we should close. Under the association agreement and deep and comprehensive free trade area agreement, which was signed on the June 2014, the Georgia takes the obligation that the legislation, we will harmonize our legislation and we will make the approximation. So this is our obligation. And as Mr. David already mentioned, the draft law is already submitted to the parliament. And I do hope that as soon as the next parliament will be in place, the law will be enacted, which means that in addition what we have right now, we will get in around 150 million to increase the size of the market. I also would like to mention that in 2017, and at that time, I was the person who was in charge directly on it. So we imposed the excise taxes on the older cars to renew the fleet and to support, to stimulate the eco-friendly and new cars in our market. In this graph, you can see that if the new cars under the 6 years in 2016-15 was only some 8%, 10%, in 2019 it reached already 46%, which means that right now the car owners as well as insurance companies has the all stimulus to insure the cars with additional compulsory third-party liability insurers. I think, as I mentioned, so the market should increase significantly. So this is my small presentation, which I shared with you. What I would like to add in addition that it is very important, and I would like to thank Mr. David ONOPRISHVILI because he is in a very close contact with us to create the new products and to work with the governments. I do hope that we should work heavily on unemployment insurance to support the government, because the unemployment insurance is not well developed in our country. So it is linked to the banking products, but there is no high awareness among the population that unemployment insurance can help and support them in the difficult times, in the times when we are right now. And also I would like to mention that the life insurance and the non-state pension schemes are also very important. As I mentioned in the beginning of my intervention, so on the international market, on the stock market, the biggest institutional players are the insurance companies, but this is not the reality in our country. To have, to become the institutional players, those products should be developed. So thank you very much to give me opportunity to share with you my thoughts.
Thank you very much for this interesting presentation and this optimistic message about growth potential in the market. May I ask David, could you maybe have a brief reaction on the comments made by Dimitri? And then after that, we'll go for a small break. David, please. Just short.
David, you should unmute your voice. David, please unmute your voice.
Yes.
Now you're there. Good. Just a brief comment, sir.
Sure. With pleasure. Actually, we really we have a really small market today, and share is 1.2% of the GDP, and compared to any other, other countries, it's really small and low. And we definitely have a room to increase the share of the insurance in economy, in GDP. First of all, Dimitri already mentioned few things, which is definitely it's on our agenda today. First of all, MTPL, third-party liability law in the parliament, almost 1 year now, and it was some political discussions. It had the first hearings, and parliament did not work for a while, then elections now, and I think it's already, everything is ready to this legislation to pass next year, as new parliament will be held the meetings. It's high on the agenda. We are very closely working, by the way, with international organizations in general, but very closely with the World Bank. And today, ongoing program, say agriculture insurance, which is started and recently is growing quite well, but it needs a certain support from the government as well, plus some other things should be done by Georgia, and several issues. But the gross written premium in agriculture increased in 9 months by from 11% to 11 million to 15 million, and it's quite 33% increase. And we really pay serious attention, and our farmers are really starting to understand that the agriculture insurance is really important. Also, we are moving to life insurance, which is generally not exists, only related to banking sector. Somebody takes a mortgage, and they automatically should be covered by life insurance. And we are with the World Bank now developing this, one of the most important activity business line in insurance, and hopefully we hopefully will prepare the legislation, and maybe I cannot say exactly, but like 2022 we might start this on broader way to develop. We are working now on specific liability laws, which is a medical doctor's liability law and a constructor's liability law with the World Bank. I think these products with high possibility could be already as a mandatory, could be started also 2022. So it's a unemployment insurance, absolutely was good intervention from that point. It's really possible to, and it's worth each country like Georgia to develop. And third pillar of the pension schemes, of course, really important to develop. And we are currently now with Ministry of Economy, we are working on this direction as well. So it's a really window of opportunities here. I think foreign investors really should become our not region, but region now will be a little bit difficult, but exactly Georgia, the area where it could be invested in the insurance. I think we will create this base, and of course our Spanish friends, Spanish authorities, really helpful in this too. We are moving now to principle and risk-based supervision, transformation. And I think in this transformation, we are on rules-based and we want to move to risk-based. And it's also big issue. We are preparing drafting now with together with Francisco and his team and his representative, Victor. He's also here, I think, listening, and to draft a new legislation for that, and some timetable, which part will be entering and when. And we all know that even European Union has a difficulties, and it take a long time until they move to Solvency II. Therefore, of course, nobody will be really will be against it. We also do maybe a shorter time, but still we need maybe 5-7 years to really switch. So this is a all range. We are on the pulsation of these issues, and we are moving. All my staff working on all these different directions. Government definitely is aware very well and informed, and they are also helping to us through international institutions. So this is shortly what I can tell you right now.
Thank you
very much.
Thank you very much, David. My advice to you, listening to you, is what you need to do is smart regulation. And that's the trick, to find a way to regulate in a smart way. It's not going to be easy, but I wish you a lot of success in that. So thank you again. Thank you. And I pass the floor to Sergio, please, to continue the program.
The program will continue with the break. I want to say Didi Madloba, many thanks for the sponsors, State Supervision Service of Georgia, FIAP, Cooperación Española, and Green Insurance, Partners, Benefits, IRAO, My Insurance Broker, Recrex, Crawford, ARDI, Imediel, and Alpha. And after the first part where we see the market, in the second part we will discuss about health insurance. You saw how much it's health insurance in Georgian insurance market, and then digitalization. But first, 3-minute break, and you will see some movies prepared for my colleagues. And I could say nagvam this in 3 minutes. Then we'll see everybody back in 3 minutes. You have time for a cigar or for some good, proper water and some fresh air. And in this time, we'll have a movie with the short movie with the sponsors, and we want to thank them again, and especially to David ONOPRISHVILI. And I will put once more with sound. And you see, it's better to be in Tbilisi live, but this year we found this solution. It's the 2nd edition, the 3rd edition, we will be back there. I love flying with the airplanes. And Tbilisi, it's I have very good memories from there in my heart. And it's not only Dimitri, David. It's not only food and wine.
I'm here.
It's mainly people.
Mm-hmm.
We are loving. We are Georgian people are different. I don't want to. Okay.
The year that seems to have frozen the world, yet making everything change. We all need to keep up with the changes and lead our projects forward. One of them is Extreme Insurance Report, the well-known magazine that keeps all the specialists informed about the development of the insurance business in more than 30 countries. Now available in a digital interactive format, the report provides its users new features: access to statistical data in editable format, active links to video and written content. Regular analysis, interviews and important articles will build the current image of the market that faces important changes and developments. pre-insurance professionals have contributed by sharing their views on the current state of the insurance business and its future developments. What are the lessons that we need to learn from COVID-19? How do specialists feel the wind of change in West or in East? What unites the industry now more than ever? How are the customers' needs and expectations changing? Navigating through the pandemic storm has meant for the insurance industry, as for the whole world, facing an unprecedented challenge. Extreme Insurance Report is offering you a glimpse in the regional insurance industry's logbook. Be one of the first who reads it and see how the world moves forward despite the global crisis. Don't forget to access extreme.com and also subscribe to Extreme YouTube channel.
Hello again. Are you back with us? Hopefully, yes. Now we will talk about health insurance. No. No, I don't have it.
Okay.
Are you hearing me? No?
Yes, we are hearing you.
Ah, okay.
No problem.
Well, technical devices are sometimes tricky. I was just saying I hope you have enjoyed the break. And after that, maybe you will enjoy also the publications that we have presented during it. Now, for the next period, we will talk about health insurance. How did the current corona crisis impacted on this business segment? How is the industry coping with this phenomenon, with these trends? How much is it covering, in fact, the health insurance industry, these risks, and is answering to the expectations of customers? About all of this, a keynote speech, and I hope an interesting panel. But Karel, I'm leaving the floor to you.
Thank you very much, Daniela, and welcome back, everybody. Time was a little bit too short, Sergio, to have a cigar, but nevertheless, as we're talking about health insurance, we'll probably have to stop and refrain from smoking. Our speaker for this topic is Miriam BLAZQUEZ, and Miriam BLAZQUEZ is the Chief Risk Officer of Sanitas, belonging to the BUPA group. She has had a distinguished career in insurance supervision. She has degrees from the University Autónoma. She's a lawyer by training, but also has become a registered auditor in Spain, which is not nothing. Quite important to have this as a background to be a chief risk officer. And without further ado, Miriam, I would like to pass the floor on to you to tell us a little bit about what are the lessons that we've learned from COVID-19 on health insurance, the health insurance industry. We are a little bit over time, so if I could ask you to make your comments as briefly as possible without, of course, leaving out any important message. Miriam, please, you have the floor.
Thank you so much. Good morning to everyone, and for me it's an absolute pleasure to be here sharing in this occasion a screen, not table, with the rest of the panelists. For me, it's also a pleasure to share time with Francisco Carrasco, who was my colleague for many years in the Spanish Supervisory Authority, and obviously with the rest of you, it is a pleasure for me. I'm going to share with you, or I'll try to share with you my screen in order to give you a brief presentation first on the Spanish market for health in the insurance, the insurance context in Spain. Spain is a country where we have a big NHS. The total population has a public system in place with a high quality in general terms, but in addition to that, it is a reality that a big part of the population has also, in addition to that, an insurance private policy for health. Imagine that in Spain we have 46 million people, and roughly speaking, we have 10 million of policy holders. 2 million of them are civil servants. For the civil servant in Spain, there is an option of choosing the public or the private system. But for the rest of those 8 million of people, they pay the national service, and they, in addition to that, pay a private policy. Okay. We have in Spain around more than 60 health insurance companies, but there is a big concentration. The big 5 or so keep high total market share. The particularities of our insurance sector in Spain are mainly that you have affordable products with a high level of service. You have we don't have gatekeeper, for example, like in the UK. The policy holders has free access to all the specialists. Of course, hospitalization, outpatient services, etc., everything is covered by the policy in general terms, and which is also a good characteristic of our market is that in general term there is not a reimbursement product. What you have is free access, not paying additional money to a long list of doctors and hospitals in our network. What you have to pay in some occasion is a little copayment for some services. When I said a little copayment, I'm talking about €1, €2 or so. The good point of that is, okay, obviously the premiums are paid on an annual basis, but the cost of the premium is very adjusted to your risk, so it is affordable in general terms. On average, for example, in Spain, a policyholder pay around 50 or 60 euros a month. Okay, we have individuals and corporates as well as clients. So one of the secrets, I would say, of the success of this line of business in Spain is that the origin and the history of this line of business in Spain in the 50s or 60s, there were a groupation among doctors. They didn't have an insurance company in place, but they built like a mutual share of the risks, and then the products were adapted to the necessities of the population with a very affordable cost, because the doctors in Spain traditionally has worked for the public system and at the same time for the private system. So we have a good network of private health in Spain, and that permits to gives to the policyholders a good service around the different areas in the different places. So imagine it's not the same to provide a medical service in a big city like Madrid or Barcelona than in a little village in another part of the geography. Another characteristic of the entering into the situation we are living this year with the crisis and with the COVID-19 pandemic is that as the sector has been able to attend the policyholders from the earliest stage of the crisis, that gives us an advantage for our clients. I said, from the very early moment of the pandemic in Spain, it was early March, probably as you know, in those days, in Sanitas, but not only in our company, but also in the rest of the industry, we decided to cover the pandemic. Although we have in our policies an exclusions for a pandemic declared officially, we did not doubt to cover and to attend the policyholder, the clients and the patients in our in the hospitals and in the medical center. That was a very great decision from my perspective, because in that way the client has realized that the insurance company is taking care of them. For me, the reputational risk is very important, in the transparency and the trust that we need to obtain from the clients and from the policyholders. Before crisis, before the COVID-19 crisis, we had many risks in our hands. You can see in my screen, obviously, cyber and information security, privacy, reputation, regulatory change, all the challenge from the technology, all the challenge from the economic conditions, etc., etc. The product value for me is an important and a key question, because we need to demonstrate every day that we are adding value to the clients, not only in the insurance industry, but in the rest of the economy sectors. But you have the new mindset in the, for example, millennials and the new generation, and you have the elderly people. You have different types of policyholders, but in the end, you need to demonstrate to them that you are adding value to their money, the value of the money. So in that way, the response from the industry to cover the pandemic and to be there with them during that very difficult time, with this catastrophic time, during this catastrophic time, has been very good and positive for the public opinion and for the opinion of the policy holders. Initially, we thought that we were going to suffer a lot of lapses, for example, directly coming from the economic uncertainty and economic crisis. But the reality has demonstrated to us that, for example, today, with the year-to-date data, we have less lapses than the same period of last year. Very few people has decided to renounce to the health insurance this year. It is true that we have implemented a lot of additional service to the policy holders, and we also have offered from the very beginning a long list of retention plans, which is linked to reductions in the payments, or some advantages, or some help, or studying every single situation. We have trying to help or to support the policyholders in that way. So what we can say now is that obviously the uncertainty remains in the economic pathway, but what has been demonstrated during the crisis is that the client is with us and it's going to not only is with us because we are now increases the number of cells in the market. Obviously, during the lockdown, the commercial activity was well disappeared directly in the insurance market. But now we are recovering a good level of new sales because we have been able to demonstrate that an insurance product is good for the uncertainty, and in the health in particular, it's more useful than ever, where the public system has need the support from the private system to face the pandemic. No, the emergent risk we had before the pandemic will be higher after the pandemic. We had since, well, if you read some of the public publication on risks around the globe, you can see that, okay, we observe an increasing customer and social expectations, the need for more tailored and more detailed and more personalized products, affordable prices, digital solutions, next generation technologies and medical treatment, more complex, more expensive sometimes, but on the other hand, the population is expecting more preventing medicine, and in that way, the technology and the digitalization is being able to offer a higher level of service to the in the medical area that before, or some years before. During the jumping to the next slide, sorry. During the crisis, the industry in general, I can share with you the particular case in Sanitas, but it was the same in the rest of the industry, I think, in Spain. Well, we had a strict lockdown in place the 14th of March. There was a very restricted period of activity. Well, since May, the government relaxed some measures, but, well, we are living now a second wave of the pandemic in Spain, not so hard than the very first one, but we need to manage every day the evolution of the pandemic. What as an experience I can share with you, the main initial measures taken by our team. In that way, I would say that more than ever, it's important to have a robust team prepared for the uncertainty. More than ever, we have demonstrated, or the reality has demonstrated to us, better said, that the solvency, the risk assessment, the predictability, etc., is useful, and it is the uncertainty exist and remain, and it is necessary to be prepared for them. And as much as you can be robust and well prepared for the uncertainty, is better for you and better to protect your policyholders. A crisis management team was created in Sanitas since late February. Thanks, we have part of the BUPA group, the subsidiary of BUPA in Hong Kong, was suffering the pandemic during January, and during February we are starting preparing for the pandemic. But I need to be honest to say that it was, well, we can imagine ever that the lockdown and the size of the pandemic was like the reality demonstrate to us to be. Well, from the lockdown declaration, the working from home activity was implemented in 24 hours. For that, we had initially many doubts of the, well, we are going to be able to maintain the level of service to the policyholders because, okay, it was the very first time in history with all the staff working from home.
Miriam,
we reinforce, sorry.
Miriam, can you speed up a little bit because we are running out of time? It's very interesting, but time is unfortunately.
It's very strict.
Well, you get carried away.
We organize, you can see the detail in the presentation, but we organize the service to the clients, the coordination with the medical provision, and we were able to cover the crisis, no? And after that, we have many lessons learned. I can show you one of them, but again, I would say that having plans in advance is important. The micromanagement is important. The use of video consultation, for example, for us has been very useful, because we had, before the pandemic, a video consultation service with to the clients, but that has increased enormously, because in the moment where the patients were unable to go physically to the hospitals in many occasions, the video consultations with their own doctors were very useful. That will stay for the future, of course. And also the lessons learned can apply and could be applied for future crises, but we cannot be relaxed, because future crises will be in some ways similar to the COVID-19 crisis, but in another way maybe we can have in the future many different crises. So it is extremely important to be prepared to the uncertainty, as I said before. What we can expect from the future, in that way, I have the same impression that Francisco Carrasco said before. I'm a positive person, so I think it's important to be focused more on the value for the policyholders. Insurance is good. It's a good invention. Before COVID, many said that the insurance was going to disappear, while the digitalization is going to demonstrate that the uncertainty doesn't exist. This is not right. Uncertainty will exist as long as the humanity exists. And this pandemic has demonstrated that the health is a priority for the society, is a priority for the population. And it's good to have a good combination or a good level of cooperation between the public and the private system. I think the Spanish example is good in that. And obviously, the aging of the population, the demographic changes, obviously the uncertainty over the economy, are a big challenge for our industry. But the good point and the positive point is that the preventive medicine, the digitalization, the robotics, all the wearables, universe, etc., will contribute to offer to the population a good level of health, and with a limited cost or with an affordable cost. And more than ever is key to win the trust from the customers. We truly believe that a good governance, a good policy in place to be transparent to the clients, to the policyholders, etc., is more important than ever. The environmental, social, and governance are key. The responsibility and in the end, what we call the social contract we have with the society from the industries. It's very important. In the end, the truly owner of the companies are the clients, and be focused on the satisfaction on the client is the only way to go, because the competence in the market is really high, and obviously you need to demonstrate every day to the policyholder, to the client, that you are adding value to their money. No? So in that way, we consider the fair treatment to the customer, and demonstrate that in every single micro moment in the relationship between the client and the company, you are acting to the benefit of them. It's important. For example, now a key focus is mental health, not only the physical health. You need to demonstrate that the service to them is complete in all the health in a broadly speaking concept. And also it's important to put an eye on the economic pressure in the future, and to adapt the service and the products to the different economic realities. What I mean is that, okay, we have a complete product, but we have lower and cheaper products where, for example, we are able to offer not the hospitalization, but the video consultations and the outpatient services. And in that way, it's cheaper for the client, or alternatives in the way of the channels to offer in the services, etc. No, the innovation is key. The digitalization is key. The capabilities to offer good service in a good way to the clients is key for us. So many lessons learned from the crisis. More than ever, it's important to have a good solvency position, a good risk management system in place in the company. Also, the supervisory role is key for the industry. During this year, we have had more interactions than ever, probably, with the supervisor, and that has been really useful, because in the end, the supervisors has been very supportive of the actions the industry were taking to manage that unexpected crisis. No, so well, the future is here, I think, and I'm positive, and I think it's going to be challenged, but we will. The resilience is important, and we must work to be better after this crisis. Thank you very much. At your disposal to any doubt, and just for limiting the time, I finish here. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Miriam. I think your message is very valuable, and I would like to stress for the people also in Georgia the importance of the function of a chief risk officer. And as you could hear, Miriam came up with some very good ideas. I think it's a key function under any solvency framework is a good risk management. And we should remember some of her messages, like the need to build trust with the consumers, also the need to have contingency plans in place within the business, and to also deal with micromanagement, which is maybe not always so nice, but it is necessary in the context of risk management. Let's now move on to the next panel, and I'm pleased to welcome three.
Miriam, just a minute. Miriam, please close the presentation. Okay. Close the share screen.
Okay, well, that has been done. Thank you very much. So the three persons on my panel are, first of all, Aleksandre KOBAKHIDZE, who is the Deputy Medical Director of Euroins in Georgia. We have Cornelia PARASCHIV, who is Managing Partner of Medical Check-in. And we have Michael JAPARIDZE, who is the CEO of ARDI Insurance. And let me start with asking a question to Aleksandre first. What do you think? Do you think that the health insurance sector in Georgia did a good job under COVID-19?
Thank you. Thank you, first of all, for organizing such interesting event. And it's great pleasure for me and our company to participate in this discussion. So regarding the COVID-19 and its effect on health insurance market in Georgia, so I would like to just COVID-19 affected all businesses and insurance sector is not an exception. So however, as it was mentioned by David, it's not so much affected compared with other lines, other sectors such as hospitality and hotel sectors. However, affected relevant business lines in insurance, yes, such as travel insurance, for example, yes. However, I would like to emphasize regarding the effect and impact COVID-19 on the medical claims and losses, yes. During the lockdown period, medical claims and losses have been reduced. However, in March and April, however, and it was reduced due to the lockdown and delayed some elective surgeries and some planned outpatient visits and manipulations. However, after opening the country, reopening the economy, we got the cumulative effect in June and July. And one of the most important point within this COVID-19 pandemic, it is the increase, a negative impact on local currency. Yes, we have significant devaluation of local currency, which itself causes the increasing prices of medical services and especially for medications. Yes, and you know that the expenditures of medications, this is the one of the critical challenge on not only for insurance companies, just for overall global healthcare systems. Yes, so and the significantly increased prices for medications, and at this time the insurance premiums don't follow this price increasing tendency. Yes, those are the main impact on COVID-19 on health claims and health insurance. And also several small and medium-sized businesses have been affected, which means that increasing the unemployment rate, yes, and I think it will also may have a negative impact on the health insurance market in short and long-term perspective as well.
Thank you very much. Can I then turn to Cornelia? Cornelia, do you think that insurers did a good job, or could they done it better in terms of managing COVID-19?
Hello, and I'm very happy to be in your company. I congratulate you for this wonderful event. Regarding this crisis, of course, that also health insurance companies, as long as all the governments and social, economical, and medical health systems have coping with. We are facing a very severe crisis. Severe crisis in terms of, let's say, unknown and perversity of this virus, because it's just one virus. First of all, everyone thought that will affect elderly and people with comorbidities, but unfortunately we see that the front line, the children, look what happened with the younger people, with special persons in social determinant cases. We see that this crisis is very, very severe, so that a lot of borders were crossed, age, income, geographical, and so on, so that the health systems were overwhelmed. From this point of view, we see that it was a problem of prioritization, because we had issues regarding who is going to be tested, who is going to be treated, who is going to be ventilated, and in the future, maybe who is going to get the vaccine. So these issues come from because of the lack of resources in these health systems. But also we face the problem of deprioritization from the medical point of view, because a lot of people with non-communicable diseases, for example, chronic diseases, or some other issues that need immunization on our medical services could not attend, could not be monitored and have access to the medical services. And also another problem is revealed by this crisis is a problem of competition, because we saw that was a lack of resources, especially in the first part of the crisis. But also now with the competition for vaccines, we assist to more than 170 candidates for vaccines, and also to this problem of nationalization, because a lot of countries wanted to have all these resources for them. So this was an inequity in terms of access to medical resources. So that from this point of view, the health insurance companies should help the systems in terms of providing medical services, especially in the private sector. And also they change the way that they provide the medical consultancy via online or video calls and so on, telehealth services. What is important to see is that the health insurance company should reorientate, re-engineer their policy design, because we see that the classical model of offering services is not longer available. So that in these issues, what we saw is that health insurance companies, they provide services that affected chronic diseases, so that they succeeded to have online consultations, online examination. Also, they developed some policies, especially for COVID-19 access, especially because the economic and social impact was very big. We assisted to persons that were not more employed, so that because of the unemployment, they couldn't succeed to support the health insurance. So that in this respect, we saw that the orientation of the health insurance companies, were to expand their policies to make them much more affordable, or to adapt the prices and the coverage to the necessities of the people, and also to offer this kind of consultancy via call centers or navigators or special online examinations.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for this interesting perspective. Can I now ask Michael to say something about what he sees or considers to be the most important challenges that the health insurers in Georgia face after COVID-19? So, Michael, what can you say to that?
Thank you. Thank you for Spring for the organizing the event. I'm delightful to be here. Thank you for having me. Well, you know, long-term effects are not that easy to see now. We can have some assumptions, we can make some educated guesses or whatever, but it's very difficult now to foresee when this will end. This is the first thing, and how this will end. Because one thing is to have some sort of cure against the virus, but again, another issue is how to restore all these systems that will be disrupted, and it is already disrupted and damaged, I would say, severely. So when I I can say from the Georgian perspective, and of course the challenges are more or less the same all around the globe. But anyway, when the crisis started reached Georgia, I would say in March, and we had this lockdown. Of course, it would be good to say that we anticipated, but nobody anticipated it. So it was out of blue, and we had this big problem. So more or less companies moved quickly to relocate the employees, to have all the services, and many services we are already digital in Georgia. Many companies had lots of services in healthcare, and not only in health insurance, in digital. So it went pretty well, I would say, more or less. But in the future, what we anticipate now is what will be the results if the system will be overloaded, that it won't be able to sustain and to deliver the services beyond COVID. Because yes, we have COVID, but we have other things to deal with, right? We have all these cases, all these melodies. They didn't go away. They are still here. We still have to indemnify the losses, and we are an insurance company. So as an insurance company, we are not doing surgery, right? We fund surgery, we buy services for the clients, right? It's very important to note, because sometimes even in Georgia, it is confused that insurance companies delivering medical services, and we are not. We are buying, and we are paying for our clients if something happens. And this is crucial difference between the healthcare sector and the financial institution as the system of the financial world, not the particular clinic. So in this issue, we are very concerned what will be the aftermath of the COVID. Currently, we are doing our best, to be honest, to cope with it, because as in many countries, all the systems are more or less centralized by government to have all the listings, all the reportings and so forth in check, to have the coordination. But indirectly, we are still in play. We are supporting our insured, I would say, and as on the information basis, but on the coverage basis as well, because indirect costs are always incurred. And still, when you have clients, when they pay you for something, it's not free, right? When they pay you, they are very demanding, and it's correct. State programs are free, and when something is free, I mean, you cannot be that demanding when something is free. So when something is not free and you pay for it, when they were demanding, and we are coping with this double-edged sword now, that we have on the one side overloaded system that cannot cope with the current COVID situation, and many clinics are, change the profile to fit the COVID challenges. And on this other side, we have insured individuals who want the services as previously they obtained. So we are trying our best to do this, and beyond this, I would say biggest challenge is the currency depreciation. From the last year, I mean, if you measure previous year's performance of Georgian lari to euro or dollar, November, for instance, 2019, it is 15 to 20% depreciation. So in Europe, it's hard currency issues not felt, but in Georgia, when you have raised thin margins or not having any margins at all, this sort of swings is like, very, very big challenge. It's not sort of challenge, it's like, it's horrible to deal with. And I also want to underline that when crisis happened, of course, all the companies delivered all these crisis scenarios and so forth. But what we noticed was that insurance companies in Georgia, health insurance is in major way cost funding. It's not insurance in classical term of the word, because we're mostly indemnifying the losses that are prescribed drugs and outpatient care. This is like 70 or 65% of the whole losses. So it's like tiny losses, but huge frequency. So when you have this sort of structure of the health insurance, insured individuals understood that they are managing the health insurance as a hedge against inflation, because they buy it once, they pay at least for a year the same amount of money in laris, of course, that they are obliged to. For instance, some 50 lari, for instance. But this 50 lari depreciates within 1 year. So the price appreciation in health insurance is a lagging indicator. You cannot keep up with the price. So they are hedging, they buy the insurance to hedge against inflation, and they're using it pretty rapid. That's why health insurance did not decrease in Georgia. Even when companies had challenge with the operation, for instance, hotel, for instance, right? They laid off the staff, but preserved the health insurance, because this was the only way to keep touch with the staff, because it was social benefit, and it was a fraction of the salary that was previously paid to them. So this sort of, some details emerged through the crisis, and let's see how we navigate through this. We are doing our best as others inside the country and outside the country.
Yeah, well, thank you very much, Michael. That was very interesting, and it shows how many challenges health insurance will face in the coming years. There's no doubt about that. I understand that there is a question from the audience. Sergio, can I ask you to raise the question, and maybe if if you could indicate who in the panel should answer the question.
Mrs. Miriam must open her microphone, but before she's opening the microphone, I will say it's a comment from Mr. Vyacheslav Chernica from Republic of Moldavia. They say, very nice that people do not lose optimism in these tough days and are looking for profit solutions. Good luck. This is for raising our moral. But the real question was for Miriam. It is possible to ask how big was the financial impact of the decision to finance pandemic? And it's from Givi Georgadze, the CEO of IMEDI-L healthcare group. Miriam?
Yes, I can give you the detail. What we have done during the worst case period of the crisis, in reality, it's a double effect. On one hand, we covered the pandemic, and we are covering all the tests now, etc., etc. But on the other hand, there was a decrease on the number of surgeries, for example, and consultations, because a big number of those activities were postponed during the lockdown. So on average, the net impact is positive for the company. We have maintained an equivalent level of claims this year by comparison with the last period. On net, obviously, we need to close the year and take it into consideration also the level of services that has been postponed is going to appear again during the following weeks. But on average, the level of claims is very, very similar to than previous years. So it is equivalent. This is one of the reasons why we have been able to cover all and to attend all the policyholders.
So thank you very much, Miriam. And now you can see why Miriam is optimistic. And I hope that her optimism will continue also in the future. So ladies and gentlemen, this will conclude our panel discussion. And I understand that we now have a small break, and I pass the floor again to Sergio. And thank you all, members of the panel, Miriam, for excellent presentations and comments. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I want to congratulate the speakers and, of course, Karel, who know everything. The sponsors from Georgian International Insurance Conference, the second edition today. Hope to be in Tbilisi. State Supervisor Service and Spanish, Euroins, Green Insurance, Global Benefits as partners, IRAO, Vienna Insurance Group, My Insurance Broker, Recrex Crawford, ARDI, IMEDI-L Health Insurance, and Alpha Insurance Companies. We want to say Didi Madloba to all of them. A huge thank you, because without them, it was very difficult to organize this conference. And now my colleagues will prepare some short movies, and we will take a small break for cigar, for water, for improving our health, not to benefit from the insurance policies. Thank you very much. See you back in, Daniela, in 3 minutes. In 3 minutes, we will be back here.
Small cigars.
Movie, please.
Empty streets in the usually most crowded cities. One of the most striking images of the lockdown period. But what did they mean for the motor insurance industry? Fighting to maintain customers, financial impact, a more competitive market, or going digital at high speed to allow customers receive best possible services? In short, changes. The 2020 edition of the Motor Insurance Report highlights the motor insurance industry trends from the CE, SEE, and CIS markets perspectives. Interviews, market analysis articles, statistical data for the full year 2019 and the first half of 2020, as well as a short tour in technology world. All condensed in the 48 pages waiting for you online. The report is available starting now in digital format on xprim.com. Don't miss it!
Hello and welcome again. Ready for a digitalization session? Well, everybody is speaking about digitalization as being the most visible, the latest, the strongest trend in the insurance industry. And it is right so in many respects. And it is also right that the current crisis has been a driving factor for this trend. But more details, how should anyone approach the idea of going digital? What are the main trends? What are the main aspects? What are the main characteristics that should be considered? How all of this can improve customers' journey, which is in the end the main motivation behind everything. We will hear from our speakers, and I will leave the mic to Karel to introduce them.
Okay, thank you very much, Daniela. And ladies and gentlemen, now we move into the realm of innovation, which is always challenging and interesting. And that's why we have invited Jason Lau to introduce our discussion. He's from Core Strateji, a company that defines itself as a strategic innovation partner. Jason's day-to-day activity is that of a content creator, as well as managing a whole diversity of startup projects. He is also teaching business and entrepreneurship at Osijek University in Turkey. Definitely, Jason is a man whose day is full of challenges and creativity. So you have the floor, sir, for 20 minutes to tell us a little bit about technology and information, the insurance customer journey.
Thank you very much, Karel, for the great introduction. It's good to be here with all of you, even though we are online. And hopefully you can share just a few insights from our work that will be a benefit to the things that you guys are doing. So I'm just going to open up my presentation very quickly. The question that I was been grappling with is, we talk about digitalization, and it's not just for insurance, but for any sector. And we work as a consulting firm, we work in a variety of different sectors, and everybody is involved in this concept of digitalization. But where does it really mesh with innovation, right? Because not all digitalization is necessarily innovation. And how can we leverage the power of digitalization to actually further the innovation agenda? And so what I want to talk about today, just within that realm of insurance, how can we think about digitalization and innovation together? Now, when the basic premise for digitalization is this move from analog to digital, right? And we see this across the board in regards to the insurance sector. We talk about physical brokers to online channels. We talk about, prevention information to actually passive monitoring and prevention. We talk about, very standard face-to-face interactions, and now they're becoming more personalized because we understand more about the customer. We understand more about what they're doing. We have this paper claims processing that's moving more to robotic claims and actually maybe even digital real-time claims handling. And so all these things are happening within the insurance sector as we move into this kind of digital realm. And as Daniela was saying before, COVID-19 has only furthered the gap between those who are on board with digitalization and those who are not. But when we think about the impact of digitalization, well, I think we can actually separate it into three distinct categories. And the first, where we see most companies are entering into digitalization, is when it comes to cost savings or efficiency improvements, right? So this is, you're trying to reduce the cost of production, reducing the cost of distribution. And we see this especially within the insurance sector when it comes to RPAs. Second, you have this move toward new revenue streams, right? So how do we create new revenue streams for the insurance industry? Using digital tools, and especially for a new generation that only wants to interact in the digital realm. So this is things like usage-based insurance and so forth, that where you require digital underpinnings, you need a digital foundation in order to provide that type of insurance. But the third kind of area that I want to talk about is how can we leverage digitalization for exponential growth, for exponential innovation? Right. So it's one thing to think about business models and to think about insurance in terms of, yes, we can make improvements, but where is there room for actual exponential growth? And one of the problems I think we all have, even those who of us who work in the kind of innovation space, is how do you separate thinking from linear to exponential? So we tend to approach the power of technology still within the realm that it's linear, that we think of linear improvements, incremental changes, and we expect incremental improvements. So as a company, you're hoping to grow another 5% next year or another 10% next year, right? Those are incremental improvements, and we look for ways to increase those, to make those incremental improvements using digital tools. So can we add this piece of software here, or can we add this RPA here, or can I launch this particular digital channel, all with the goal of incremental improvements. But if we try to think exponentially, one, there is a gap, as you can see here on the graph, there's a gap between when those results are actually implemented. And so companies struggle because they want to see immediate results. So when you put in a digitalization measure, you want to be able to have those results as quickly as possible to prove that this is actually working. But when you're thinking exponentially, you have to be able, there's a level of patience that's required. And what we often miss is that digital tools provide us a way to think differently and to think exponentially, not just in terms of linear improvements. Now, what do I mean by that? So it's great to talk about these conceptually, but what does this actually mean? So I think when we talk about the insurance space, there are several areas where we can think about exponential growth. And one is reinventing the customer journey. Another is reinventing the insurance stack itself. And then also just reinventing the whole concept of the value of insurance. I think these all offer interesting perspectives in how do we change our understanding of insurance and the insurance sector to actually reach exponential growth. Now, starting at the very beginning, we already see this is already happening within the insurance sector. I'm not sure about in Georgia, but this is definitely happening here in Turkey, where we have this move from pure insurance products to actually this blend of insurance and services. And the reason, the impetus behind this change is because, well, in a typical, with a typical insurance product, there are very low levels of interaction with the customer, right? The customer buys the insurance product at the beginning of the year. If they don't have a claim, you never see them again until they have to renew. If they have a claim, maybe sometime within that period, and hopefully they don't have a claim, right? We don't want them to have a claim, but if they do have a claim, that's the only actual level, the point of interaction that we have with the customer. And what we see insurance companies increasingly trying to do is adding additional touch points within that customer journey, because they realize we're so distant from the customer itself. Right? So are there other ways, other services that we can offer, which can be used more frequently, that have nothing to do actually with the claim itself? And you could, things like if you lock yourself out of your house, we offer somebody to come and open the key, or if you have a problem with your car, and so these are things that not necessarily have to do with the claim, but offer additional services which increase the interaction that insurance companies have with their clients. On that same note, if we think about it in terms of the insurance stack, on a very simplified level, you have your reinsurance, your insurance companies, and then your brokers. But what we're moving to is that we're going from this vertical siloed approach into more of a platform-based one, where we see the number of channels diversifying. And then you also see insurance companies, forming assistance services, prevention services, some of these within the company, some of these outside the company, within a larger holding. But as they try to increase the level of services that they're offering, they've had to diversify the departments and the structures of that organization. They're moving from this vertical approach or vertical understanding of insurance into more of a platform horizontal-based one to include different service lines. From the customer perspective, there are a lot of these kind of wide-ranging societal trends that are currently disrupting insurance. Right? We talk about car ownership and it's moving to this concept of personal mobility. And you see this more in Europe, but it's slowly entering, even developing markets here, like in Turkey, where because cars have gotten so expensive, you have a younger population who needs this more of a mobility options because they can't go ahead and purchase a car. And so where does insurance fit into that? Asset ownership, where people are being priced out of being able to buy homes anymore. And so they're moving more into this concept of experience ownership. And where does insurance fit into that? Healthcare, right? We just talked about health insurance, but people are moving away from thinking not about being sick, but how do I maintain my health? How do I maintain mental wellness as part of this overall, understanding of concept of health? And where does insurance fit into that? And then when we talk about financial planning, we think about this in terms of life insurance. But as we talk to young people, they're thinking more about smart, passive investing. They don't know, yes, they want to be able to save for the future and they want to plan for the future, but they want to do this in a way that makes sense within their digital world. And what this all goes to show is that customers' expectations are dramatically changing. You have this move from what we call customer 1.0, when it was just customer just wanted the product, because those products didn't exist. Second, there was this move toward brands as multiple brands launched the same type of product. Then it was this connection of brand loyalty. Which brand am I more connected with? Which brand gives me more security? Customer 3.0 was about that customer experience, right? And that's what most companies have been focused on within the past decade. is we think about customer experience and how do we increase that customer experience? How do we make them feel like they're wanted, that they're, you know, that we take care of them? But what we're now into is this phase that we call customer 4.0. And it's where the customer is not just looking for the experience with insurance. They're looking for, how do you serve me in terms of what my personal goals, right? My personal goals of, you know, having a family, my personal goals of owning a house. How do you fit into that picture? How does this product, how does this brand fit into that picture? And I want to be able to stick with you for the rest of my life, but only if you offer me value that extends beyond just the product. Now, what does this actually mean? So on one hand, you can, what most companies have been concerned with, you know, when you talk about insurance companies, is they've been looking at the customer purchase journey, right? How do I make customers aware of my product? How do I get them to evaluate the insurance products that I have? And how do I get them to choose me, right? So there's this, which channels are you going to be involved in? What incentives are we going to give? What kind of campaigns are we going to run? There's a focus on what we call the purchase journey, right? So how do I get more people to buy my insurance product? However, what we're seeing now is this move where companies are starting to think about, well, there's also this other side called the claims journey, right? Because the actual customer experience doesn't occur during the purchase. When somebody purchases an insurance product, they get sent a nice piece of paper, or maybe not even a paper anymore, it just shows up on your app, and that's it. There's actually no experience there. When does the customer actually have an experience with the company is when we get to claims. And so companies are starting to look at claims and say, how do we increase the customer experience into claims, right? What are they interacting with? How do we improve our claims management? How do we, you know, increase the assessment? How do we speed up payments so that people who do have a claim, that they feel better about being with us as an insurance company, and they stick with us after they've received their claim. But when we talk about customer 4.0, this is not what we're referring to. We're referring to a journey, right? Where a journey of where customers are thinking about the owning. Let's say you think about a car. When do they? How do they assess the different products? How do they go ahead and purchase the products? And this purchase journey and the claims journey fit into this ownership of the car or the ownership of the home, or, you know, starting a family, right? But it's only a small part of that. And insurance, if you remain just a small part of that journey, then you kind of stay in the background. But in order for insurance to take a front seat, then you have to take a larger ownership of this entire customer journey. So when we look at these things and we talk about digitalization, we talk about technology. Well, a lot of what we encounter with a lot of companies is that, well, they say we need more technology, right? They said, okay, well, let's bring in some IoT, let's bring in some AI, machine learning, automation. These, you know, these are all, we just need to add more technology tools. But I think what we kind of tend to forget in this age of technology is technology is an answer to something, right? It's a solution to something. But first you need to decide what you want to solve. And this is the key here is when you're thinking about customer journeys and you're thinking about, you know, how do we grow exponentially, is the question of asking the right questions. So for example, when we think about health, and we just talked about health insurance. Well, what is it, you know, how do I keep my customers healthy? And then just give them the right healthcare when they need it. So it's not just about fulfilling claims, but how do I actually provide health? With car insurance, it's not just about, you know, how do I protect my customers when they have an accident, but how do I get them from A to B? How do I give them mobility? When I get them to life insurance, right? It's, well, how can I help people plan better? How can I give them peace of mind, security about the future, especially when we have something like a pandemic? So it's a question of, well, what questions are we asking, and how do we be part of this larger customer journey? One insurance or financial group that's doing this is called the OP Financial Group in Finland, and they're one of the largest kind of cooperative banks in Finland. And within the last few years, they tried to change their approach in how they think about banking and insurance. So this is, from one of their managers, they said, we want to stay with the customer, right? We can't compete against the Googles, the Amazons, the Apples, the Facebooks of the world, right? We're not going to be more digital than them, right? When we in this path of digitalization, we can't be better than digital companies. But what we can do better is we can be better, we can stick with the customer. We know them better, right? And what do they actually want? They don't just want better technology tools. They don't just want a better app. They want, so in this case, they said, they don't want to borrow money to buy a car. They want mobility. They don't need mortgages. They need accommodation, right? They don't need health insurance. They need health. And so from this point perspective, they actually moved into developing a chain of hospitals, right? To saying, we may not always be in the insurance industry, but we will always be with our customers, providing the things that they need, which is right now, they need health, and we're going to develop businesses. We're going to innovate on this concept of what do the customer need and how do we provide that to them. So technology actually gives us the ability to deliver on customer goals, right? It allows us to understand our customer better. It allows us to understand what they need and at what times. It allows us to select or show them the right products at those right times. It allows us to make it easier for them to purchase, to be able to track what's happening. And it gives us more efficiency throughout this entire process. Right? So what we need to do is take a step back and say, well, when I'm using technology, when I'm adding technology to that customer journey, where is it benefiting the customer? Right? And how am I serving this larger customer journey rather than just my own goals of getting them to buy my insurance product? So just a couple quick examples here from a project that we worked with last year with an insurance company here in Turkey. One was thinking about the replacement, right? Which is, I'm sure it's very common in Georgia as well. Here in Turkey, all the insurance companies offer a replacement car. And we first looked at this particular journey and we said, what are the things that we can improve, right? So can we ease the process of requesting a replacement car? Can we increase the quality of those replacement cars? Can we get it to the customer faster, right? So there's this incremental improvements, right, that are available here in getting a replacement car to our customers. That's what's happening today. And we're looking for those incremental improvements. But what if we took a step back and we said, well, how can I think about this completely differently? And one of the things that we saw was, well, why do we offer replacement cars to begin with? Does everybody actually need a replacement car? And we saw that most people didn't. Actually, more than half of the customers never even requested a replacement car. Which is great for the bottom line, but it wasn't actually addressing the customer need. And we started talking about, well, what are the ways in which we can look at it through the lens of mobility? What is the customer actually looking for? Well, they're looking for mobility solutions. What if they just want to take a taxi? Right? What if they want to use these car rental companies, just to do, what if they want to use these scooters, that are going around, right? Which was very popular in Romania, right? So can we think about replacement cars not in terms of, well, let me just give you another car, but in terms of, can I give them mobility, right? And then ease that process to make it faster for them to get their car back. And we did roll this out, and it ended up being a larger cost savings to the company than just giving the replacement car as is. Another piece that we looked at was home ownership. And we said, we looked at home claims, right, for home insurance. And we said, what is that process that people are going through now? And said, okay, yes, there is waiting for the claims adjuster. They have to get an estimate on the repairs in their home. They're filing their insurance claims. They're finding a repairman to fix those damages. And we said, how can we improve this process? How can we improve this experience, right, for the customer? But as we were looking at this data, as we were talking to customers, we said, there's another problem here, right? Why are so many of these claims rejected? Why are so many of these claims not covered? And we realized the problem here is actually not with insurance itself. The problem was with people didn't pick the right homes. They didn't check, they didn't assess the home before they bought them. They were new homes, but they had problems from the construction. And because customers didn't know how to choose a home, how to assess the quality of a home, they were stuck with a home that could not be covered by insurance, right, when problems arose. And so, then we said, well, can we take a step back? And we say, can I actually get into a business of helping customers choose a home properly, not just based on the view or the size of the kitchen, but in terms of the building quality of the home itself. Right? And how do we help them to maintain that home so they don't have a claim? Because at the end of the day, the customer doesn't want a claim. Right? The customer doesn't want to come to an insurance company when they have, when the pipe is broken and get some money. The goal is to not have those problems at all. And how do we start thinking in terms of that perspective? Now, you can say up to now, well, I've never talked about COVID. So you're saying, well, where does COVID fit into this? Right? Yes, I mean, the COVID is this massive disruption. And as we've been talking about already today, there are all these different areas where things are changing. But it's an immense opportunity, I think, for companies who can act quickly. Because as customer expectations, as journeys are changing, as just even, basic how people interactions are changing, there is opportunities for insurance to step in and reanalyze how they serve these customers. And we see this, the number of companies that we worked with, actually COVID opened up opportunities for them to actually come up with new ideas. And it's coming up with this innovation portfolio mentalities to have, how do I have ideas that I'm working on? And then when something crazy, like a nuclear bomb, like the COVID-19 comes and explodes on our lap, which of those ideas are ready to launch? And this is, Alex Osterwalder has this very basic map where he talks about explore versus exploit, right? Where you have exploit is things that you are, your current businesses, your current cash cows. But you also have these explore area, things that you are looking at, different ideas, projects that you're working on, that you're improving, that you're testing. And from an explore perspective, you're saying, this is, what are the things that could be the future of my company? While the exploit is, well, how am I maximizing incremental improvements? How am I, increasing my returns on those projects? And like I said earlier, with some of the companies that we worked with here in Turkey, it was just the right time for those projects to actually launch. So one of a car rental company, last year we worked with them on a motorhome rental business, very small. COVID came along and that business took off because everybody wanted to take vacations in a nature setting, right? They didn't want to go in a hotel. Right time. Roadside, another insurance company launched this roadside assistance app, right? Where this year, where people didn't want to have car insurance because they weren't using their car as much, but they still wanted to have some security against, in case something happened. Well, here was a cheaper option than taking car insurance. Or peer-to-peer car rental insurance was another company that pushed it out this year. Because as people didn't want to take public transportation, as people didn't want to get into taxis, well then car rental became a much more important business, and you had this whole peer-to-peer car rental business emerge, and there was one company that stood behind that as their insurance provider, and that took off as well. So it's kind of, how do you have this portfolio of things that when something crazy like COVID-19 comes along, you're ready to jump on that with your digital tools. So what does this actually mean? We talk a little linear versus exponential. So last minute, and I'll wrap it up. Sorry, Karel. One thing that when we talk about insurance is everybody is trying to build their own thing. You have an insurance company, they build their own service platform, they build their own digital app, and they're trying to reach that same digital market, right? But what if you had something, what if you could think differently, right? What if you can create a layer in between those insurance companies and those digital apps that provided all of these services on an API, right? And you could link that even with other markets itself. So you can actually go to a mobility market, accommodation market. So you can link with different, you have insurance providers, you have rental companies, you have, and you're providing these services through existing apps. Right? Now this will move you from thinking about how do I get one more sliver of the pie to how do I change that market completely to dominate the pie. Right? This is where you need to think not linearly, but exponentially. So that's me. Hopefully that was helpful or interesting. Digitalization is not just about, try not to think about, where can we improve, but actually where can we use digital to change our entire business.
Okay. Well, Jason, thank you very much for this very interesting, inspiring presentation. In fact, what you have shown us is that insurance is about service. And the question is how insurers will in the future better take care of the service needs of their customers. And if technology can contribute to that, so the better. And we need people like you to wake up the audience for the many possibilities and opportunities that still exist. Thank you very much for your presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, let's then move on to our panel discussion. And we have asked two gentlemen to guide us through this very new domain of insurtech, which has started, which is evolving, and we don't know where it will end up. Oh.
Any technical issues?
Yes.
Do you need assistance?
There was a bird on the line, so I disappeared shortly. But,
right in the middle of the digitalization section.
Well, exactly.
That's good.
Yes. So the two gentlemen are Klime Popovsky and Desislav Danov. I don't think I need to introduce Klime Popovsky. It's a name that sounds like a bell, both in Western, in Central, and in Eastern Europe. Professor Klime Popovsky is now teaching at the insurance department of St. Clement Ohridsky University in Northern Macedonia. He is, of course, also very well known as the former head of the supervisory agency in Macedonia, and I'm very pleased to welcome him back on this conference. And the second gentleman is Desislav Danov, who is a manager, FinTech Guardian. He's a founder of InsurTech Balkans Hub in Bulgaria. And I do remember Desislav very well, because we were both members of the insurance and reinsurance stakeholder group. So let me first of all ask Desislav. Well, is InsurTech a game changer? And if so, why is that?
Hello, Karel. First, let me congratulate the organizers about this event, because this is my first exposure towards the Georgian insurance market. So I'm really impressed, and I am really thankful to be here. And going back to your question, I think if you have asked me a year ago about InsurTech, I would have answered that InsurTech is one of the possible solutions for insurance company to move forward. But for the moment, after this COVID crisis, I think this is the only way the insurance company could maintain their presence on the market, the only way they could stay alive. Because InsurTech is just a solution, but the main driver behind the changes that are coming towards us is the digitalization and the connected with it societal changes, because digitalization actually rearranges the way we interact with one another, the way we interact with institutions, the way we perceive the world. So InsurTech is just one of the parts of this new arrangement, the new order, let's say. And this is the only way that insurance companies can stay alive. And if I may cling on the speech of one of the previous speakers about how we should restore the systems after the COVID crisis, I'm afraid we will not be able to restore them fully or partially. Probably we'll have to reinvent new systems of interaction between us and everything around us. Because if you just take a little bit backwards, if you remember the times before, of course this is a stupid idea, but if you have read about the times before the First World War, the horse transportation was the main type of transportation known to man. Between the wars, the horse transportation was equal to the car transportation and with the motor transportation. And after the Second World War, the horse transportation became a sport, a hobby, but never really took again its place of main transportation mean. So I'm afraid we will not be able to live again in the world we used to live before the COVID crisis. we have to reinvent it one way or another, and the insurtech is the way insurance companies can reinvent themselves and their business.
Okay, thank you very much, Desislav. Let me now turn to Klime. Would you consider insurtech a threat to the insurance industry or an opportunity? And if you consider it an opportunity, can you tell us some about the successful stories that we have already seen? And I know you've been working on that. So Klime, what do you think?
Okay, first let me express my great thankful for invitation of Experience and the Georgian Insurance Supervisory Authority, which I have a very close cooperation, and I'm particularly that Karel is moderating this panel, and this is maybe our 5th event this year, at least I count before I show up here. So we are very productive even in the COVID time. Well, I will start with my discussion, but first to give some comments on the question that you addressed to Desislav. Namely, recently I found a very nice report from Accenture that analyzed 18 industries and found that although the insurance is currently experiencing a low to moderate level of disruption, it is among those most susceptible to future disruption. Today, the level of disruption has risen significantly, and this is just the beginning of the journey. And why now? The insurance industry has one of the highest ratio of cost of labor to final price, meaning that there is a great deal of trapped value inside the insurance value chain. So this is the potential. Now, let me back to your questions about insurtech ecosystems and what means this, and to share some recent experience in my previous capacity as the chairman of the Insurance Supervisory Authority. The emergence of large numbers of insurtechs or startups offering a wide variety of solutions and capabilities is an opportunity for insurance companies to innovate through collaboration. Startups often have a deficit of traditional insurance expertise, while insurers can benefit from different skill sets and mindset, alternative ways of harnessing technologies, and fresh perspective on both new and existing market segments. From the other hand, insurers have the data, distribution channel, and innovation practice that many tech startups would envy. They have decades, often centuries of industry experience and institutional knowledge of the complex regulatory environment. For these reasons, insurance can offer insurtech the capability to bridge the gap between old and new and to establish insurtech ecosystem. What is the ecosystem? Ecosystem is a network of players from either within or outside the industry who work together to define, build, and execute market creating customer and consumer solutions. Successful ecosystems are defined by the depth and breadth of potential collaboration among the set of the players. Now, let me tell you what I did in my previous capacity. The Insurance Supervisory Authority of Macedonia has been very actively involved in promoting innovation and digitalization. Specificities on the Macedonian financial system are the domination of the banking sector over the non-bank financial intermediaries with existence of separate financial regulators. Therefore, based on my personal initiative, we explore the idea of building a dedicated financial ecosystem where member companies, government bodies, the others financial supervisors, startups can engage to develop innovative industry solutions. As an essential part of these initiatives was foundation of the Regulatory Innovation Gateway, which main purpose was to facilitate, to encourage, and to support the innovation in financial services. This innovation gateway serves as a communication channel or platform between the innovation community, fintech and insurtech, financial industry players like banks, insurance companies, investment funds, financial supervisors, to build trust and dialogue among parties. This innovation gateway would allow fintech and insurtech firms to engage with the financial supervisors outside of the formal regulatory firm engagement processes by offering legally non-binding guidance and navigation to the regulatory landscape. The financial supervisors are willing to consider the need for a possible change of regulation and to remove barriers for entry into the new innovative businesses while protecting the integrity of the financial sector and preventing an excessive accumulation of risks.
Thank you very much, Klime. That's very interesting, these developments. And if I go back to Desislav, I would like to ask you the question. Banking is traditionally, people were saying that the banking sector was ahead of the insurance sector in digitalization. Do you think that COVID-19 is now the release of the digitization also for the insurance sector?
I believe so. I believe so. And there was I remember a very funny poll going across the internet. Which is the main driver of the digitalization effort in your company? The answers being the CEO, the CTO, or COVID-19. And I think the COVID-19 is the most obvious answer to this question. Of course, it creates also opportunities because before this virus, the companies were some sort of country bound. They had their focus on their main markets, and they tried to get a share of it and to get a bigger share of it. This is known as the red ocean strategy in marketing. While the digitalization creates opportunity to think also about the blue oceans in the marketing and try to get a grip of new markets. And especially if I can come back to that ecosystems Klime is talking about, especially if you take into account smaller countries like Georgia, Bulgaria, Macedonia, and so on and so forth. It is not important to be focused on your market. You have to try to reach beyond it, and digitalization is a very good way to do it. Although you know, Karel, very well that there are some problems entering a new market by insurance company in terms of capital and authorization, but still the digitalization makes this jump very much more easier compared to the pre-digitalization period. So I think really the COVID is opening new doors, and the company should explore them to the best of their interest.
Okay, well, that's quite an optimistic message. Klime, you as a former supervisor, can you tell us something about the risks or the dangers of a digitized economy where insurance will be more based on insurtech? What are specific risks that supervisors need to be watching out for?
Digitalization has an impact on consumer protection, and the extent to which customers or consumers are treated fairly from the design, underwriting, and price of the products, their marketing and distribution, to the claims processing and the ongoing management of customers. So to the whole insurance value chain. So first, I will give you some examples that we can really be concerned from the consumer protection, and then I will address some important aspects of what should be the role of the supervisors. In respect of product design, digitalization, like we are in this environment when we have shared economy, usage-based insurance, and on-demand insurance, may affect insurance coverage. The data available to insurance on use for example, motor vehicles, will inform the pricing of the product, while consumers need to be aware of such use. Risk pricing can be more tailored to the use and risk profile of the customers, which can affect both price and require reserves of insurers. In terms of marketing and promotions, digitalization will have an impact on the information provided to consumers. Regardless of the use of the digital technology, the information provided needs to be timely, clear, accurate, and not misleading. The use of social media enable insurers to better reach its target market. This will reduce marketing costs. But from a customer perspective, social media can improve customers' experience with insurance, for example, improving communication with the insurer. However, on the other hand, consumers may be confronted with not often or with unsolicited offering based on their use of the internet, which is not in their best interest. The use of robo-advice or automate online advice will potentially improve accessibility of products to the customers. It will, however, require proper design of underlying algorithms and adequate availability and use of customer data. Risk emerge when the type of customer or type of product require advice. The more, so since the response to queries by the consumer is limited to the algorithm being used. Also, deficiency in the design and operation of the algorithm can create a risk of mis-selling. Another development for promotion and sales is the use of price comparison websites. Increased accessibility of information and products is one of the benefits to the customer, to the clients. There is, however, a risk of mis-selling as well as issue around transparency in respect of the identity and independence of the owner or operator of this comparison website. So there are many potential risks from the consumer point of view in terms of different digital solutions. For this purpose, it is recommended the need of supervisors to develop understanding of how innovation works and to ensure a proper assessment of new product and business models and the design and functioning of the IT architecture, infrastructures and processes, and how this is included into the insurer's risk management framework. Supervisors will need to develop new tools and skills for supervision of digital insurers, engaging cooperation with other financial supervisors and with other authorities, safeguarding the supervisory perimeter to prevent regulatory arbitrage and engaging information security. Supervisors should consider establishing rules or guidelines for appropriate and responsible use of new technology to safeguard the fair treatment of customers. So this should be the main message about the future role of the supervisors.
Thank you very much, Klime. That's very interesting, and it's good to remind us that we all need to be careful because whilst there are opportunities, there are also risks, and risks may have a consequence for consumers as well as for supervisors who are there to protect the consumers. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have had a very interesting conference. We had a long debate. And I don't know whether there's any question from the audience that we can still take. I'm looking at Daniela, at Sergio. Do we have any specific questions still from
I have something from Republic of Moldavia, the same Vyacheslav Chernica, he's an insurance broker. He said it's about regulatory bodies. I think that now the supervisory authorities have to make their strong move and propose legal upgrade, especially in CIS and Eastern Europe countries, as to allow and validate digital insurance policies and application without being physically signed. Current situation in many states where policies have to be physically signed, it's outdated and has to be solved urgently. In Romania, it's happened like this. I don't know what's the situation in other countries. If somebody want to comment, it's okay.
Yes, I can give. I can show.
Yes.
Please, Klime.
We have the same problem, and actually we solved. It was 3 years ago when companies start to offer online sale. So the problem was the physical signature. So we have a special regulation of electronic signature, but the problem was more related with the motor third-party liability policy, because one piece of the policy should be submitted to the police and as a proof that you have insured car, and then you can have stamp for your vehicle that it's technically correct. So after long discussion with the Minister of Interior Affairs, they agree to accept even on just to show on PDF file, or at least to print if it's possible, but if it's not, just to show on your mobile phone that you have confirmation from the insurance companies that you own the MTPL policy, and it was then automatically connection with the database from our central database from National Insurance Bureau to the Ministry of Interior Affairs, and automatically was validation that this policy is valid. So in that problem with this solution we solved the problem with the police. But for other policies like travel insurance, homeowner, even for the health insurance, voluntary private health insurance, actually electronic signature is something that it's valid and automatically it's confirmed by the insurer.
Thank you very much, Klime. From my perspective, let me add to this that we should keep in mind that we are not yet all digital natives, and that before we can move to a total digital world, many years will go. From a regulatory point of view, what is important is that when we draft new legislation, that we should avoid requiring the writing of a physical document, and that would allow for a further digitalized world. But let's not forget that there's still many people today that do not have a computer, that do not have an iPhone, and that may have difficulties to work in a total virtual environment. So, ladies and gentlemen, I think that the time is now come to end this conference. And first of all, my thanks to the members of my last panel, Klime and Desislav, for your good messages and contributions. I would like
just
to
before you close, I like to greet to my friends in Georgia, and today I will open a bottle of Georgian wine that I was keeping, and unfortunately we are not able to be in Tbilisi, but in the digital way, that Tbilisi will come at my home.
Enjoy.
Thank you, David.
Well, you make us all jealous, Klime. But ladies and gentlemen, let me make some few concluding remarks. I think that we started this event by underlying how COVID-19 was an unexpected event with terrible consequences. And we need to remind ourselves that maybe COVID-19 informs us that there may be in the world more black swans than we had imagined, and that some of these black swans have already become white swans, and we need to be aware and be prepared for these risks. We learned that the insurance sector and also the supervisory community managed very well to deal with the COVID-19 crisis. And I think that's a very positive message. We also heard that that was the case in Georgia, and that's particularly useful to know. But the fact that the insurance industry managed the crisis so well is also to a large extent due to its strong capitalization that it has obtained in Europe under Solvency II. We received a very positive message on opportunities for the development of the Georgian insurance market. And I think, as David underlined, this means that there is an urgent need in Georgia to develop a good solvency framework on which these insurance developments can be based. And I advised him already when he is going to develop his regulation to do so in a smart way, not over-regulate, but smart regulation that is necessary. We also learned today that the future looks bright for the consumer. New services can be offered and will be offered thanks to technology and insurtech. This is also good news for the insurance industry, as long as the industry keeps what I would call a flux mindset. That's to say, a mindset that is receptive for change and that looks at the opportunities that may present themselves. And finally, we learned in our last discussions that we need to be careful and look out also for the risks and the problems that may come along with the digitalization and the creation of a more insurtech friendly environment. And with those words, I would like to pass on the floor to David for some final comments. David, please, you have the floor.
Karel, thank you very much. I think today we had a really interesting and useful conference discussing all important issues. Maybe not everything, it's impossible in 3-4 hours, but related to COVID influence on the insurance industry, especially on the health, what the Georgian insurance industry is doing, its overview, and digitalization, its role, which is really very important. I would like just mention that in Georgia, we already have in several areas applications, and companies are using electronic signatures. So you don't need to personally go and sign somewhere in the offices, especially majority, almost all offices now are almost shut down and they don't have actually front office open. So, and now I'm telling them, and we are really working with the companies that, because it's clear who will be behind of the digitalization and cannot manage their kind of investments they are not doing in this area. I think they might be in 10 years will be gone out of business. So I think it's so important, and this panacea actually really was helpful certain way that the companies feeling that it's even more important now that digitalization and accelerate investments on that direction. Otherwise, I would like to thank to organizers, Exprime, Daniela and Sergio and their excellent team to organizing such interesting conference. Definitely we all contributed, but you are kind of a leader in starting this discussion, and we follow you, let's say. And also I would like to say very thankful to Karel that he took so major part and led this conference, and I really hope you will visit us, and I will invite definitely all of you after the COVID will be finished in the world. And as soon as it finished, actually, you consider that Georgia will be open to have another conference now in live, not through video or our digital things, but just coming to and visit Georgia. Also, I'm really thankful to other speakers. Thank you, Klime, you are with us, and Francisco Carrasco was here, and some and other speakers whom I didn't know before, but I know now them well. So, and all participants who took part, and I think we all heard very interesting things. And for supervisors, it's really important to have such meetings on different countries, because we really have to share experience from each other. And this is a really good tool Extreme is doing to arranging such conferences. Thank you very much.
Thank you also very much, David. In fact, I need to say on behalf of Extreme and my colleagues that on the thank you note, one line should go especially for you and the Georgian Supervising Authority. I am sincerely saying that there are not very many such authorities that manifest such an opening to new ideas, to communication, to exchange of knowledge, and we are thankful for that. I would add a special thanks to the International and the Ibero-American Foundation for Administration and Public Policies. You have seen their logo showing FIAP, especially to Mr. Victor Garcia and to Alba Rodriguez for their support. In the end, from my part, what can I say? I'm happy that despite the challenging times, there are also good news, there are permanently good news, that our markets can still develop and go towards a better future. Maybe in our case, in this Central and Eastern regions of Europe, it is also right to say that being so small has sometimes some advantage, because there is a lot of space to grow even in such challenging times. And that being said, I thank you all for your presence, for your contributions, for your patience. Hope to see you, really hope to see you live in Tbilisi next time. Thank you very much.
And now the final words. It's I could say to everybody, Didi Madloba, a huge thanks. And it was impressive to see how many people participate in Zoom, how many participate in also in YouTube. I supervise all the time this. I see the numbers. This is why I say Didi Madloba to everybody. And like I said in the beginning, regarding Georgia, the name is Sakartvelo. For those who don't know yet this, I could say, like I say at the beginning, Sakartvelo Mshvenieri Kvekana Mshromeli Dabrdzeni Khalkit. Found this translation on Google. And finally, I want to thank to the supervisory authority, like Daniela mentioned, with the Spanish FIAP, Cooperación Española, main partners, Euroins, member of Eurohold, Green Insurance Georgia, partners, Benefit, Global Benefits, IRAO, My Insurance Broker, Recrex Crawford, ARDI, Imedi-L, and Alpha Insurance Companies. Without those sponsors, it was very difficult to organize this event. Your presence here motivated us, and it's also motivated, like David said at the beginning, we make some pressures. It was not a pressure. We want to have the second edition of the event, and to continue next year with the third edition. You could see everybody on YouTube. You can see again the conference. You can see the conference in Zoom. You can see the conference on Xprim with 2M, xprim.com, and on Xprim News. And also you could subscribe to our YouTube channel, because there you will find a lot of interesting conferences regarding all the insurance market in CE. Thank you, David. Thank you, Georgian people. And because you don't have a goodbye, let's say like this: Nakvamdis. See you soon.
Nakvamdis. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Keep safe. Bye
See you
bye.
again.
Awesome.
Bye.